Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Welcome to the Fasting Focused Lifestyle Podcast, where each week I will be discussing all things fasting and how it can become the most valuable tool in your personal toolkit so that you can live a long, healthy, and meaningful life. I'm your host, Vicki Sharon, and thank you for joining me. Hi there, welcome to episode 3 of the Fasting Focused Lifestyle Podcast. I am Vicki Sharon, and I'm your fasting lady, friend, person from afar, friend from afar, wherever you're listening to me from. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you for supporting, the little guys and whatnot. Hopefully by now you've listened to episode 1 and 2, talking about my story, why I am doing this, why I am here, why I'm motivated to share what I'm sharing on my podcast. And then as well as episode 2 that kind of talks a bit more about where you should really be starting from before you go onto this journey to get your foundation and everything, get a good solid starting point before really taking off and being successful with it. So hopefully you've listened to those. If you've not yet listened to those, go ahead and pause this one and then come back to it afterwards, because I promise you it's going to be so much more worth it and more valuable when you have that already started growing in the process before you come and listen to this one. And I always usually say at the end of my podcast, as we continue to go forward, but just as a friendly reminder, the advice and direction, guidance, etc., information given in this podcast is by no means not a substitution for medical advice. And before starting any weight loss method, any, bettering your health, taking those proactive steps for yourself, always check with your medical professional, all that good stuff to cover all our bases, because we want to be safe about it and be smart about it. So with all that being said, you're ready to get started. You've listened to both episodes. You're like, all right, Vicki, let's get this. Let's get going. Right out the gate, I am going to tell you to remember that fasting is not a diet. It's a tool that you can always utilize, access whenever necessary to come back to help restore that balance in your life. Not just from a dietary perspective with the weight loss pursuits and whatnot, but also, emotionally, hormonally, and just the day-to-day, nuances that can throw us off can be helped from integrating fasting into your life consistently. And I've seen it, I live it every single day. And the way that I'm able to keep myself composed and just, maintain who I am, is because of fasting. And it's something that I still utilize on a daily basis and have been for now, coming up to almost 3 years since I've started integrating some form of fasting every single day. So coming up on 3 years. So I'm just going to pat myself on the back real quick for that one. All right. So you're like, all right, I've got it. Mindset's good. All right, let's get started. Let's get going. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is you're going to understand what a 16-8 is. So if you've never heard of any of the fasting methods or anything before, a 16-8 is really the lowest beginner level of fasting. And what the 16 and 8 mean is that 16 hours is going to be the duration that you're going to be in a fast. So again, starting fresh out the gate, completely new to fasting, but you're ready to go. I would say start this evening, and by, let's say, like 8 o'clock tonight is when you're going to close, as I would say, close your eating window. And by closing your eating window, you are starting your body to allow it to begin that fasting process. So when you get into that fasted state, obviously your body is going to use your food in your stomach first for fuel. When that's tapped, which, it takes a good while for it to be completely tapped, but when you are obviously going to bed later that night, while sleeping, you're not going to be eating. So it's easiest to integrate that fasting window before you get into bed for the night, and then just allow that fast to continue throughout to the next day. So, all right, tonight you go to bed, 8 o'clock you go to sleep, and obviously you're not going to be eating in your sleep. So when you wake up in the morning, let's say you wake up 7, 8 o'clock, maybe you've got kids, a job or whatever that you're going to do. So you do your regularly daily schedule, have your coffee if you're a coffee drinker. I will say, however, minimize or be consciously aware of the amount of cream and sugar. If you're a heavy cream and sugar coffee drinker, be aware and just like start to be mindful of reducing the amount of creamer that you're using. Or I would suggest to grab something like a half and half. I use plant-based almond, like the Silk almond creamers for the coffee. I don't put any sugar or anything in there. But again, if it's something that is going to help you stay on the journey, have your coffee in the morning. You should, as a caveat to that, don't feel like it's giving you permission to go to Starbucks and get like that full mega frappuccino bullshit with the tons of whipped cream and sauce and sprinkles. No, that's not the coffee that I'm talking about. Having within reason, whatever coffee or tea, whatever you drink, just don't go crazy on the sugars, because that's ultimately like what the first thing is that we can help to kind of bring down. So you're in that fasted state. You're either having your coffee, you're having your tea, whatever morning beverages. You're going to wait to eat, I would say, until the very earliest, anywhere from 11 to 12, 1 or 2. If you can push it that late, great. You're going to benefit longer in the long run. I know it can be tricky at first. I know this very, very well. It can be tricky. The things that you want to be aware of as you are getting into that daily 16-8 fasting method. So you're in that fast for that 16 hours. Keep yourself busy. Give yourself a to-do list, but make it something fun to keep your mind off of food. Plan activities. Get out of the house. Get away from the regular triggers with food if you can help it. Get out of the house. Remove yourself from those food triggers. If there's smells or something around you, other people eating, be aware of those triggers, but don't feel like it's always going to be something you have to, hide from them. You need to be able to, over time, and this is all like time, having time and patience with yourself, realize that life is going to be so full of triggers everywhere you go, from foods to people, reactions, situations, like everything. There's always going to be some kind of trigger somewhere. So starting with fasting, starting at that low level of okay, let's just tiptoe into the fasting pool at first. Let's see what this is all about. Let's see, how good this feels. Do that 16-8 method for a good 2 weeks, I would say. If you're fresh out the gate, let your body get used to it for a good 2 weeks. If it tends to fluctuate in say, a couple nights you close your eating window at 9 instead of 8, and then, you maybe break earlier or break later. Honestly, that's fine. There's so much flexibility to this. As long as you're in that, hump of being over 14, 15 hours fasted, you're going to benefit from integrating this into your daily life. You're going to feel it over time. Again, this is not a magic pill. This is not a quick fix, a fad, something that you're buying off of some bullshit infomercial or something. This is an investment that you're making in yourself, in your health, in your future. because not only is it practicing abstention from just that mindless overconsumption of food all day, but you're also allowing your body to practice, self-restraint and practice just that mindfulness of, wow, maybe I have been eating all day, and you don't realize it until you're just, okay, now what do I do? Because maybe you were like me, where I just felt like throughout the entire day, if I was bored or had nothing else to do, or, I was sad, mad, excited, whatever, and there was some kind of snacky things around the house, I'd be like, oh, this is good, or, oh, I'm bored, or, oh, I'm going to sit and watch TV. And to me, sitting and watching TV was plenty of an excuse to just sit there and, just inhale it. That's horrible. That's horrible. There's no need for that, honestly. And the more we realize that and the more we're able to take control of it, I promise you, you're going to feel like fucking strong. I'm telling you. So like I said, you're fasting for that 16 hours. You want to ideally start I would say an hour before you go to bed. You want to give yourself time and everything to get into your going to bed, your nighttime routine. Get that into that nice fasted state. And then when you are ready to break your fast for the day, regardless of, where you're at, when you're breaking your fast, one of my biggest tips, maybe don't be so hard on yourself to start, but breaking your fast, one of the best things that you can utilize to break your fast is going to be something with a high fat content. And the reason why I say that is if you look into the actual biological scientific breakdown of why fasting works and what the process is going on in your body, breaking your fast with a plant-based fat, maybe a piece of cheese, a hard-boiled egg if you like those, whatever you can find that's going to work best for you. Breaking your fast with a fat is going to minimize the insulin response in your body. Ultimately, that's what we want to keep down. So when we're in that fasted state, your body's able to use the stored resources from the food that you last ate, obviously. But once that's depleted, that's when your body goes to your stored fats resources all over your body. So the excess fat in your body is honestly just energy, bodily, caloric food energy, just in little Tupperware containers all over your body that your body's like, oh, she ate too much last week at dinner time. We have a feeling she's going to need this later on. So let's hold on to this excess, caloric energy, and we're going to put it on those hips. We're going to put it on those arms or on her butt, wherever your body is able to quickly put it away and, save it for later. That's where it's going to do it. So keeping your body into that rhythm of allowing it to continuously tap at those stored fat resources after depleting your glycogen food stores that you just ate from that previous meal, the quicker it's going to be to get into longer fasts as you progress further along your journey. So you fasted for the 16 hours, breaking your fast, have some nuts. My personal favorite, I love to use avocados, whether it's that little container of guacamole, if that works for you. A fresh avocado obviously is best. Sliced up on whatever by itself is really good. Mix up with some salsa. A handful of mixed nuts is also really good. Whatever works for you. But like I said, make it something that it's a predominant fat. Plant-based fat is obviously going to be better for your body. It's just my personal preference. But whatever works best for you, cheese, nuts, meat, little piece of, dried meat or whatever. So once you've broken your fast, I would say wait anywhere from half an hour to 45 minutes to an hour if you can before you have your first meal, your dinner or lunch, depending on what time it is. So let's say you're like, oh, I want to have lunch with my coworkers or whoever at 12. You're like, okay, so I want to break at 11. Handful of nuts, hard-boiled egg, couple pieces of cheese at 11 or 11:30, and then come 12 o'clock, your stomach will be ready and awake enough to break down and digest the food that you go ahead and put in there later on when you do have that meal. Thus making it easier for you to, stay on. And that fat that you use to break your fast with is going to minimize any excess cravings. Like when we have carbohydrates or starchy, overprocessed stuff, I would say avoid using any starchy, sugary, carbohydrate-filled thing to break your fast. Never do that. If you learn anything from this one episode, never use a carb to break your fast. It can cause a drastic insulin spike, and then your body wants to balance it out. So to balance out a massive insulin spike from a starch or sugar carbohydrate, it's going to drop you well below your homeostasis threshold. And when it drops below that point, your body, that's when you get those like the crash and the cravings, the crazy cravings. Your body's basically going to tell you, whatever you just gave me that shot me way up to the, floating high in the sky, give me that again now. And that's how we get like the ups and downs, and we're riding the roller coaster waves all day. Stop that. You can stop that with fasting. Break it with a fat, wait half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour ideally, then go ahead and have your first meal. If it turns out where you're having, like you want to break it so you can have a lunch and a dinner on those 16-8 for those first 2 weeks, great, you can do that. That's totally fine. Have your meal. When you're eating, a couple little extra tips I'm going to tell you too. Obviously, like I said with the fats, fill up on your fats, your proteins, and your fibers first. Any carbohydrates or sugars, allow yourself to have them, because psychologically, if we're like, oh my God, there's a piece of bread, or so-and-so made a cookie or a cupcake or whatever, and they want you to participate that, they want you to have that, have it, but save it for last, so that way you fill up on the other stuff first. Because you need to also remember what you're eating in those eating windows is going to sustain you and fuel you until the next time you break your fast. So it's got to be something with quality and that's going to sustain you until you break that fast again. So just remember that. It's just like if you are given, what's a really nice fancy car? I'm not a car lady at all. Let's say a Bentley or one of those like Lamborghini super deluxe, listen to me. A fancy like Lamborghini. And of course, the owner's like, here you go, have the keys. You only can put premium fuel in there. And you're like, oh, I want to save some bucks. I want to save some money. I'm just going to go and put unleaded in there. Do you think that car is going to last a while if you're putting that unleaded like crappy fuel when you're supposed to be putting like, premium fuel, or, if you're putting diesel instead of gas or gas instead of diesel, like hopefully you get the point I'm trying to make here. You need to make sure you're putting quality in so that your body's able to fully reap the benefits of implementing this fasting method, even with just this low level 16-8. With that being said, I'm going to just remind you and stress so much the importance of don't feel like you have to be super hard and super restrictive to yourself. While you are in this fasting journey, it's not something that's just going to be like, okay, I'm just going to adapt this mindset. Sure, Vicky, whatever you say. I know it doesn't work like that. So remembering that this is something that you're doing for yourself, for your future self, and just obviously to be there with family and everything. And you're allowed to make mistakes. Honestly, that's how you learn. And if you overindulge one day, if family orders pizza and you have a couple slices, do not beat yourself up. Don't feel like you've gone off the rails and, oh, I fucked this up. I'm done. I can't do. No. You can always come back to fasting. This is not some exclusive club. This is not for like, only the special people that can. No, anybody that wants to try this can implement this. This is really like the basics of human evolution. We fast. This is just part of how humans work, right? Obviously, when we're sleeping, we're not eating. And that first meal of the day, it's called breakfast because you're breaking the fast. But if you are in an emotional state with trauma, triggers, stressors every day, where you are feeling like there's nothing else that you can do to control that emotional eating where you find yourself just inhaling food all day, fasting can do that. And all you're doing is just pushing breakfast up a little bit further to later on in the day. That's it. And honestly, you will feel so good from integrating this into your life over time. Being kind and gentle and understanding throughout this process while you are in that fasted state. Look up different things to inspire and motivate yourself to get yourself into that mindset. I'm going to compile a list of people that I utilize, that I watch, listen to, all this good stuff. I think I should put it like in a blog post or something. I'm so slacking with like all this stuff. Of the resources that I used for inspiration, motivation along the way. So you don't always find yourself just constantly going back to the kitchen and feeling like that, I'm bored, so I need to be in the kitchen like snacking on something. It doesn't have to be like that, honestly. And fasting can help fix it. Kindness, understanding, compassion towards yourself. And it's like, think about when you are flying on an airplane and they say, in case of an emergency, your masks come down. You've got to take care and put the mask on yourself first before you go and help anybody else. Because if you're hurt or debilitated, there's no way that you can help somebody else. The same thing applies. You can't pour into somebody else, be parent, family member, friend, coworker, employee, boss, whatever you've got going on in your life, I'm sure demands a lot of responsibility, a lot of like, I've got to be here, I've got to show up for what I do on the day to day. But you got to show up for yourself. And a lot of us think that we don't need to, or we shouldn't bother doing that for ourselves. And the truth is we've got to. You've got to make that investment in your health. Because this one little domino that we're pushing and getting started and fixing for what, at least to me, I thought that was the biggest thing that I would never overcome. I was always told, oh, you'll always be the big girl. I'm 5'11", so I'm already like, woo, like way up there height-wise. But I was at almost 400 pounds to just feel like, yep, this is it. This is the way that things are supposed to be. You are not where you feel that you're stuck. If you feel happy and content with where you are, cool. I want that for folks. But if you feel stuck, if you feel like I'm never going to get this weight off, I'm never going to fix my mindset, I'm never going to overcome this emotional eating, I'm telling you, I'm telling you, you can. You absolutely can. But it's one little step at a time. And I always like to say, too, time passes whether you take action or not, which is why, like I was talking about earlier, to be forgiving, kind, loving to yourself when you make those mistakes. But to remember, it's okay. I had slip-ups. I, many times, had French fries, had bread, had alcohol. Do I tell people, like, when they ask me, oh, I should avoid alcohol and bread and all that, like, sugary stuff? Yeah, but is it completely something you should remove completely? If you can help it, cool. Like, that's fantastic for you. But I am happier taking my time and allowing myself to soak up the journey and the experience throughout the entire time, but also with that, participating in those kind of events that have those indulgent things made by friends with family or whoever, because those are the moments and memories that we need and that fill us up emotionally. Those connections, those social experiences that I know last year was pretty far and few between, but being in those moments with the ones that we love, friends, families, all this, those gatherings, we need those. And they don't always need to just be obsessive over food. That's what, it's granted, I know a lot of cultures, they focus a lot on that, but it's more in the preparation, that everybody's sitting together, and you don't have to like eat yourself silly. You can have your meal, have your, in your eating window if that's when it works out to be. Or you could just be like, you know what, I ate breakfast today, but tomorrow I'm going to get back on and, plug right away. That's awesome. Allowing yourself to understand that this is a lifelong journey. This is something that you can always come back to, like I said. And having that component, like I talked a lot about in the second episode, having the element of enjoyment throughout this journey, having something within this process that you get excited about, that you look forward to each day, that lights you up and fills you up with just like excitement, where you can't wait to continue and just see that growth process along the way. That's going to help sustain and keep you on that journey all the more stronger too. It's just, like I mentioned before, it stacks in your favor, essentially. So with recording this also on my Facebook page, the Fasting Focus Lifestyle, facebook.com/the Fasting Focus Lifestyle. I was taking some question and answers. So, Chris Hernandez, nuts after a fast may cause nausea for some. What kind of nuts, Chris, are you referring to? Was it like a specific brand? Did it have some kind of flavoring? Was it salted, unsalted, raw? Those can possibly make a difference depending, and hopefully it's not where you have like a mild nut allergy as well. So, going forward, I also want to remind folks that if they ever want to connect with me on my podcast, I want to start featuring some more folks and integrate that more into. I want to integrate more spotlights onto my fasters, or maybe folks that have done it, have had great success, maybe folks that are still like in the beginning phases of their journey and wouldn't mind me making an example of them if they're already plugging along really well and maybe just need advice on how to, crank the knob up a little bit higher and get things revved up a little bit stronger. If that's the case, I can help you out too. I also do offer coaching, consulting, support, advice, direction, guidance, motivation, all that good stuff. If you go to thefastingfocuslifestyle.com, all the information's there, as well as a calendar where you can book any time to consult with me, and I will give you a more specific breakdown. So before I close up entirely for this episode and finish it out here, a couple other things I want to touch upon with integrating that beginning level fast. Like I said, it is a beginning, bottom, basic level fast. Folks beginning, like I said, completely fresh out of the gate, never have fasted before, do it for that 2-week stance. And when you're doing that, let your focus be solely on the fasting. Please, please, please do not feel like you have to do the fasting and do like dietary changes and do restrictions and do obsessive like workout routines and like high intensity cardio and stuff. If you take on too much all at once, you're going to get overwhelmed super quickly, and that's a very quick way to feel defeated. Do one thing at a time. Once you have flexed that muscle where it feels nice and warm and you're like, yeah, I'm getting this fasting stuff down. This is becoming like a nice, comfortable pattern I'm able to utilize each day. Get comfortable with fasting first. Then after that 2 weeks, you're going to probably start to notice taste buds starting to change. Even with just doing it for 2 weeks, your taste buds can change. The first 2 weeks that I did a 16-8, I lost 21 pounds. Like nothing. And I didn't change the food I was eating. I still ate. I don't want to say I went and ate whatever I wanted. I was mindful. I still had pasta. I still had bread. I still had alcohol. But I was mindful and started to pay attention to the way that I was feeling with different things, different foods, the way that I felt when I woke up in the morning the next day from the previous foods that I ate going into that fasted state until I broke it later on in the day. Doing those daily check-ins is also something that's going to be super, super helpful for you so that you're realizing, okay, the food I ate last night, do I feel good about that? Is that something I can come back to? Hi Camille, how you doing? Is this a food that I can come back to? Is this something where I feel really good and content and satiated with, where I don't feel those hormonal pangs or cravings or anything like that from the previous meal? Because if you go and have something that, you're in your eating window and you just go off the deep end, you're binging on like fried foods, pizza, who knows, whatever, and that's your meal that carries you into the next day, that fast the next day is probably going to be pretty tough. It's going to be a real trying, like difficult kind of day. Probably one where you're going to have to like lay low, almost like recuperating after a hangover, essentially, if you think about it. Because like I said earlier, it's the fuel, obviously the food that you're eating when you're breaking your fast does matter. But first and foremost, when you're brand new to fasting, the most important thing is you've got to get down that consistent daily fasting habit right out the gate and let it go for like a good 2 weeks to see how you feel. Do those daily check-ins, see how you're feeling, thinking about the way that, your food made you feel from the previous night. If it helps you, if you're the type of person that benefits from keeping a food journal, a food diary, using MyFitnessPal or whatever works best, that's fine. Use that. If you're the type of person that likes to do that, if you are the type of person to benefit from counting calories, if that's your thing, okay, cool. I'll thumbs up. I'll applaud you on that. Throughout my entire journey, I have never and vow to never obsess or count calories. I don't feel like that's a very helpful or, beneficial thing for people to obsess and worry about. It's got to be the quality of the food. Obviously, once you get that fasting habit down of doing the 16-8 for those 2 weeks, letting your taste buds adapt and change throughout that time period, things are going to start to taste and change for you. It's not going to be everything. You're still going to have triggers. You're still going to have like cravings for other stuff. Realizing, hey, I can overcome these triggers. I don't need to succumb to them, give in to them. And if you do overindulge on things, just know you can balance it out with fasting and that it's something that you can always come back to. That was a lot. So I very much feel like this is something that anybody can benefit from, no matter where you are in life. Obviously, children don't need to be fasting. Elderly, if for the most part, like adults can benefit from this. If you are needing to integrate fasting into your life and you feel like you have no control over your eating habits, your food choices, if you're feeling like you're stuck at your weight, fasting can absolutely help you. It's not starvation. It's just time-controlled eating. It's just allowing yourself to utilize the stored fat that's on your body. It's just energy. Your body wants to use it. Your body, I like to say, and I truly mean this, is a multi-million-dollar smart house that we get to live in. So we have to take care of it. It's our responsibility to take care of our bodies. And for me, fasting is the magic sauce. It's my thing. And the more people realize this, that our bodies are designed, they want to use and fix and repair. When we were younger and we got a scrape, All we would have to do is clean it up and put a Band-Aid on it, and our body would heal it. Our body knows how to heal, guys. Like, we know. Our bodies are like, let's just step off, bro. Let me heal. Let your body heal. It wants to heal. It knows exactly how to heal and to use the stored fat for energy. If we let it do that, magic things, as far as I'm concerned, they feel pretty magical. Amazing things can happen with our body. They absolutely can. I believe that to my core. If you need help, support, guidance, direction, motivation, inspiration, or any and all the above, and you want a one-on-one consultation with me, please go to thefastingfocuslifestyle.com and click on my calendar and go ahead and book a time. And I'd love to set something up with you and give you a specific plan if you need it. Thank you guys very, very much for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week for the next episode. Let me know if you have any questions, tips, advice, or anything you want to celebrate. I want to celebrate my fasters. I want to congratulate. I want to shout out for you guys because I've seen and heard so many folks publicly, privately. You've reached out. I want to cheer you on because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be, in the journey, in the thick of it and doing your thing and just feeling like, man, I just wish I had somebody there. I want to be there for you guys. You've got this. I believe in you, even if you don't. And I'm giving y'all a big air hug right now. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See ya. The Fasting Focus Lifestyle. Copyright 2021 by Vicki Sharon. The information given within this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult your doctor before starting any weight loss method. Thank you.
Fargo, the new virtual assistant from Wells Fargo, makes banking faster and easier. Like this.
Fargo, what's my checking account routing number?
And this.
Fargo, turn off my debit card.
And this.
Fargo, what did I spend on groceries last month?
And that's just the beginning. Do you, Fargo? You can. In the Wells Fargo mobile app. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/getfargo.
Terms and conditions apply. Your mobile carrier's availability and message and data rates may apply. Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.